And we are recording. Welcome, everyone. I have a very special guest today, but first of all, this channel is proudly sponsored by Inkforged. This is a fantasy role playing game of high detail but very easy to play. You can imbue your weapons and gear with magically charged ink. You will find the link in the description and in the pinned comment. This channel is also proudly sponsored by the Red Room Publishing. Please check out their store for exclusive tabletop RPG products. They have recently released New Flesh, a future noir tabletop RPG where cyberpunk meets biological horror. You will find it in their website. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. This channel is also proudly sponsored by Dead Tree Studios, the publishers and developers of Dames of Asstoria, a tabletop role playing game where you play as monster girls, experiencing high adventure in a world that doesn't fully accept them. They have recently released the Pay What You Want tabletop RPG, Daughters of Lamb. This game, you play cybernetic nuns with guns looking for the missing pieces of their AI god. You will find it in their website. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment too. And we are also proudly sponsored by the Era Zone SteamQuest prototype tabletop RPGs project. Check out the Kickstarter. It's a huge collection, well, so far, a substantial collection of tabletop RPG ideas from science fantasy, science fiction, horror, you name it. The Kickstarter will be in the description and in the pinned comment. Now, today, we have Daniel Carvalho. He is the creator of ASILO. In English, you could translate it to asylum. This is a very, according to my perception, because I have received the Patient Zero quick start document. It's like a game book. It's a very unique take, according to my perception, on psychological horror where tabletop RPGs are concerned. So, welcome, Daniel. Thank you so much for being here. And please give us a brief description of what Asilo is all about.
First of all, Abraham, thank you for having me. This is just amazing, and quickly answering your question, Asilo is a clinical horror game where the players take on the roles of patients that are interned in a mental hospital or a psychic yard or something of the like, and they must try to survive whatever is happening in the institution, which can either be a paranormal event or something very clinical, very unethical. It all depends on who's telling the story and what story is being told.
Mm, this makes me think that are there like storytelling elements, or is it just like roleplay?
Oh, the game itself is very role play heavy. That's how I like my experiences. I like small roles just to add to the drama and the complexity of it all. But my emphasis when on the games that I play and the games that I make is to make sure that everything is role play heavy. As for the game itself, you have this theme, this subject, but you will find in the book uh, s- several tools that you can use at your disposal depending on what kind of story you are trying to tell.
Ah, I see. So it's rather like you end up crafting a story of psychological clinical horror because
Yeah.
there are some tabletop RPGs that are like hybrid storytelling games such as Raven or Children of the Fall or Hardy Boys, and you're constantly shifting between telling a story and playing a role. So I thought it was like a bit like a hybrid.
No,
Uh-huh.
no, it's a
Pure role
full
play.
heavy role playing game
Oh.
where when the need arises, you roll dice to see how far or how quickly your character will degenerate, because that's the whole subject of the game. You have a sanity clock that is measured through stress, and the more stress you have, well, the quicker you will be disposed of. You will die, you will go insane, Asilo will take a hold of you, and who knows what happens next.
Excellent. By the way, I really like the lighting because it makes it feel like the lighting for your room. It's kind of like a
Thanks.
survival horror. Survival horror. That's great. Yeah,
I
yeah.
try. I do my best.
Now, before we go deeper into Asilo and all of its features, tell us about how you got started with tabletop role-playing games.
Okay. For starters, I had an idea of what role playing games were basically when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons through television shows like the Big Bang Theory. The plot thickened about 2014, 2015 when I came across a YouTube channel called Node that had a small session divided into 3 episodes of Dungeons and Dragons. And I was curious. I checked it, and the dots started to connect. Wait, you mean I can play a game like Dragon Age or anything else, and I'm limited only by the power of my imagination? That's awesome. And then I saw the other videos that they have about that game session, and the algorithm introduced me to Critical Role, and the rest is history. As
That's
for
very good.
my first game sessions, they only appeared about 1 to 2 years after.
That is excellent because it's as if you experience tabletop RPGs in a completely new way. Very different from, let's say, more traditional introductions to tabletop role playing games. You got into it from a modern perspective and you came up with
Yeah.
your own concept. Now, how did you come up with the idea for Asilo?
Well, it came from a Call of Cthulhu session. Me and my players group, we a few years back, we had this movement, so to speak, called Rola Iniciativa, which was some sort of brand here in Portugal, and we had weekly role playing sessions, and one of our columns, so to speak, was for each month we would play a different game. 1 month we played Dungeons and Dragons, another we played Vampire, and in 1 month I gave the suggestion of playing Call of Cthulhu, and they were like, "Great, you will be the game master." And I was like, "I don't know how to play the game, nor have I ever read Lovecraft, so oh boy."
Hmm.
And I had 2 options. I would either read Lovecraft or read the book for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, and that's the choice I made. I read the book, which is not properly light, and I prepared the game session the best I could. And the part that really drawn me was the sanity system, the stress points, and the bounds of madness, and all of that jazz. And we were playing the session, and things started happening, and we were rolling dice, and it was like, okay, now you roll, okay, you will compare the number of the dice with your tracker. Okay, this happened. Now you roll again. Okay, then subtract. And I left that session thinking there has to be uh, another way to approach this sanity system and this sanity question a lot more easier. And so I started digging it. I started seeing what I could create, and with about 8-9 years of work, I came to Asilo, which in the most recent edition, it has what I call a qualitative aspect to madness, because um, you're not getting points, you're not comparing your dice rolls to a pool or a tracker. What happens is when you come to face with a traumatic event, you roll dice, so your simple d6s, and the number you roll, you add as stress. You fill in the stress dots on your character sheet, on your sanity clock, and uh, after reaching a certain threshold, you gain what I call a behavior. And once your sanity clock is filled with stress and behaviors, your character is lost, either by death or by insanity or whatever. And this is the qualitative aspect. It's just not, okay, I'm closer to 100, I'm almost insane. No, you look at your character and you're like, I hear voices, I hear ringing in my ear, I'm scratching myself, I have nervous tics, my character is a mess.
So you could say that you took a look at the sanity system for Call of Cthulhu, or Call of Cthulhu, as some purists call it, and you thought this is a great concept, but the execution could be different.
Yes, yes. Streamlining it, yes.
Hmm. Now, when it comes to Asilo, does this mean that all of the scenarios take place within an asylum, or do you also have experienced scenarios and adventures in other sites?
So the quick answer is every story happens inside an asylum, inside a psychiatric ward or something, because the system, the game thrives in some sort of claustrophobic aspect. And there is always the chance or the illusion that you can get out. But it happened creating scenarios where the session was in a way outdoors, and there's always interesting aspects that you can craft into your story when it comes to explore what is outside of Asilo. You can one session, for example, uh, the players managed to escape, but they found themselves in a ghost town. There was nothing, no buildings, not everything. The only thing that existed in that reality was Asilo. So that that revelation added to the tension of the game of just we are alone, we are trapped in this place.
And that makes a lot of sense because, for example, when it comes to fantasy tabletop role playing games, there are some games out there where the main feature is the dungeon. You only
Yeah.
have like a town or a main hub, and the action happens in the dungeon. So this it's almost the same thing, but there's no dungeon here, or rather, the dungeon is the asylum. Or we, if we were to take it to a deeper level, perhaps the dungeon, the real dungeon, is in your own mind, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's one catchphrase that is often used to advertise the game. That the patients, the players are ill, and the asylum and asilo is the cure. So whatever happens, it's for their own good, for better or
Mm.
worse.
And does this mean that you can also play around with the different style of asylums? Because not every asylum is the same all over the world. So I think there is a lot of room for creativity when it comes to the layout of the building, the
Yeah.
staff, and the background stories of the staff. Is this correct?
Yes, absolutely. You are free to do as you choose, even in the game itself. When presenting the scenarios and what you can do with your own stories, there is no defined lore. There is no defined characters. There are examples of what you can do, what kind of institution and what kind of characters you can use, but they are just player or game master aids. You are free to use your own backgrounds, your know-how to the asylums and the psychiatric wards in your location, or go a few years back in the past, or a few years in the future. You are free to do with this template as you want.
So this actually means that if I wanted to, I could run a game of Asilo in in a science fiction asylum in outer space, or rather
Why
science
not?
fantasy. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, you can use that approach, or you can go for something paranormal or something cultist like, where the patients are used in rituals to appease the gods or some eldritch horror, or you can go with a cyberpunk-esque theme and uh, have the patients being used in experiments in order to improve the health, be it physical or mental, of the general population.
And this also means that it could be applied to other contexts, right? For example, you could have like an asilo in a fantasy setting with all sorts of fantasy species and races, like crazy elves and dwarves. And
I mean that you can use that egg. When I came with the idea for Asilo, I only pictured humans. I only pictured people. I didn't think so far ahead. But feel free to do as you wish.
yes, because I just pictured an idea of perhaps a dwarf that was suffering some sort of trauma because he saw all of his friends dying in some mine, or an elf where his forest was burned and now they
Yeah,
are in the asylum.
no, that is amazing, and if you you can even make some form of crossover. For example, you are playing a Dungeons and Dragons session where those traumatic events happen, and in the next day you are playing an Asilo session with those characters.
Mhm. Yes, the possibilities are endless. Now, besides Call of Cthulhu, do you think there are other influences that affected your creative process when designing Asilo?
Oh
Other like
yeah,
Silent Hill or something like that?
that's the big one.
Uh,
I'm a huge fan of psychological horror, and there is no platform, there is no medium that does it better than Silent Hill. And
mm.
I'm a huge fan of Silent Hill. I consume almost everything from that franchise, be it video games, movies, comics, and Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack is my go-to when I need to get serious and sit down and write. Um, and if I were to just pick one part of Silent Hill that is my anchor, it would be Silent Hill 2, or any
Mhm.
Silent Hill game where it is stated that whatever is happening in the town comes from your own subconscious. You are creating your own hell. Everything
And
comes from your own insecurities, your fears, your own sins.
is there a particular movie that also influenced Asilo?
The closest that comes to mind is Shutter Island.
I was just thinking that. I was thinking Shutter Island. Yeah.
That is the big one, and I'm sure you found on the internet that picture where you have a forked road, and there is a sign on the left that goes Raccoon City, and the other on the right that goes Silent Hill, and the legend or the description says, "Which one would you pick?" And every time I came across that picture, I go Silent Hill. Silent Hill. I have
Hmm.
more. I have a greatest advantage of facing my inner demons than facing zombies and bioweapons.
I also recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, Jacob's Ladder, which is the main
I,
inspiration apart from Clive
yes,
Barker for Silent Hill. It's a really good movie. Mhm.
it's on my to-do list. Thank you for reminding me.
Now, when it comes to combat or physical confrontations,
Mhm.
does Asylum feature that as well?
I mean, it's not. It doesn't have a fighting system per se. Everything is resolved around the rolling these sixes. And even though it's possible to have PvP, for example, um, everything comes up to, for example, you are fighting a player character or you are fighting an NPC. Everyone rolls dice, and who rolls higher wins, and the other gains stress. It's simple as that. Because fighting is not the focus of a Zil.
So you could say that everything is handled through a unified mechanic. There is not a separate combat system.
Yeah, everything is as simple and as streamlined as possible. What we want is that juicy drama and that juicy role play.
Now, is Asilo going to be like a self-contained experience, or are there plans for expansions, modules? Well, at the present, because sometimes games change. Sometimes you start with a game idea, and later
Mhm.
on in the line, you think, well, this expansion could be great. So, are there any plans for that?
I mean, when it comes to plans, what comes to mind is the lost cases. It's something that will be present on the campaign, on the game found, and it is a series of extra scenarios that you can use in incorporating your game sessions. As for other plans, right now I don't have anything in mind, but who knows what kind of crossovers and surprises may come in the future.
Are there any literary influences? Because well, you said that you haven't read Lovecraft, but are there any other books related or unrelated to the clinical horror of ASILO that also influence the design process?
Um, uh, for starters, I ended up catching on my Lovecraft. So I scratched that from my to do list. But if I could pick up a book that draws some meaning of what Asilo is, it will be Crime and Punishment.
What elements specifically from Crime and Punishment?
The degeneration of Raskolnikov.
Uh-huh. So it plays out into the, or it plays into the dealing with your own inner demons, right? Or
Yes, your inner demons, your guilt, your expectations, because he was he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was going to do was wrong, but still uh, he did what he did. He kind of had to go the extra mile because bystanders were present, and the whole book he is himself dealing with what he just done, and that's the way it is described from passing out to having eloquent conversations with his friends. With that report he produced and published about the I don't know the I don't remember the terms exactly, but it was cathartic or karmic that he published a work in how the criminal mind could be forgiven in certain aspects.
mm, something that I really like of newborn games, because I knew about you because of newborn games, of course, is that you guys really like to. You're not afraid of taking on any theme, any subject in tabletop RPGs. Just like in Demon Ninja, there are some things that others shy away from that. But and would you say that Asilo offers like an interesting way of exploring the darker aspects of mankind?
Oh, yes, for sure. And let me tell you, I've had some wild sessions in Asilo concerning to that, because there are uh, there are two types of players when it comes to Asilo. There are those that take on the role and want to see how deep and darker and nasty everything is, and there are those that want to cling to their humanity, that they consider and they realize that they are ill, they are patients, and they're doing their best to survive. Um, and since you pointed out the not being afraid part, I can introduce you to a subject, to a tool that the Zillow has, which is the liability waiver.
Hmm.
So to play Zillow, you need to sign a liability waiver. And the way it works is that everyone at the table signs the liability waiver, including the dungeon master, or in this case the caretaker. And after everyone agreed on on being part of that experience, then the session begins. And a lot of interesting stuff happens when it comes to the liability waiver. There are those that want to play Azil. They sit at the table, they turn on the pages, they see the liability waiver, they read, and they ask, "Do I really need to sign this?" And there are people who, when I say, "Yes, you need to," then I don't want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after signing the liability waiver and having a conversation about the themes that some people don't want to see discussed at the table. There are two types of people: those that roll up their sleeves and say, "Bring it on," and those that, okay, I don't want to talk about this, and that. And when it comes to the bring it on people, and I make a disclaimer about this in the book, some people just don't know their limits, and there is always a time when something happens and no one was ready for that revelation or that outcome, and there is a quiet at the table. There is a silence, and then we either pause from the game and have a conversation about what just happened, or we just slowly but surely carry on. And there is always something beautiful when it comes to ending a session and knowing me as a caretaker, as a game master, that the people that I played with found something new about themselves that probably they didn't know.
Yes, I think that is very important because you are committing yourself to an experience, and that means you should expect some how would say heart wrenching moments,
Yeah.
some things that get you out of your comfort zone. But as long as you agree beforehand, otherwise you will be playing something, getting no surprises, playing it as if it's nothing else. But with Asilo, it seems to me that you're actually experiencing what your character is going through from the comfort and safety of your home, of course, or
Yes.
wherever you are playing.
Yeah, that is the thing. And when it comes to playing it safety with safety tools and whatnot, those are present in the game. There are some suggestions of techniques you can implement in your game sessions to make sure that everyone is sort of comfortable playing a clinical horror game. But there is a reminder that even though you use these tools, your imagination will betray you, because I'm sure you've had the moments like this where you are playing a game, something strange or dark happens, and someone asks for a fade to black or a cut to black, but either during the session or the days following, your imagination is picturing what was happening, what was going on, and probably maybe you are projecting yourself into that situation.
I am always criticizing the way that they present safety tools because tabletop role playing games are completely safe. There is no issue of safe. They are more
Yeah.
like comfort tools. They're comfort for your own comfort. But if you're going to have like a mental breakdown because an imaginary spider killed your imaginary character, I would recommend to seek help first and then play tabletop RPGs because nothing is going to happen to you. You're perfectly fine. This is like a video game. In a video game, if your character gets killed, fine, perfect, right? No, you're safe. So it's more like comfort, even if you're embodying the character and you're expressing everything about your character. Your character died or your character suffered some sort of nasty thing. Well, it's just your character. It's not you. You are safe.
Yeah, that is pretty much it. And even though, as you said, you are safe, you can always go your extra mile, the extra mile, like you said as well, by role playing, by projecting yourself into that position, into that situation. That can be fun, that can be amusing, but that also can be harmful, depending on how much of yourself you are investing.
Depending on the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's awesome. Asilo looks like a very interesting take in when it comes to streamlining psychological or clinical horror. Now, before we wrap up this interview, do you have more things to add about Asilo?
Well, uh, what what I can say about the game, besides what was already been mentioned, is, and if I have to make some sort of selling point, is that ASILO is a very streamlined, very mechanical light and role play heavy game that will probably show you more about who you are, or what you want to be in a dark, twisted way. If you're there to give this experience a try. Besides this, when it comes to the game and the game found, there is a lot of things that you can try out before the game itself. Patient Zero is one such a thing. Um, it's a book by in the same genre than the fighting fantasy books from Livingston. And if I may, the idea behind that book was that we needed some sort of quick start, but we can't use a quick start of a Zillow because the game is so rules light that by uh, making a quick start we will be giving away the game. So we or I focused on the theme, on the setting, on the experience, and I created that game, which was very fun. I recommend those that like to write and create games to create your own fighting fantasies because it is an experience. Um, and the selling point of Patient Zero, which is basically it's free. You can check the campaign and you get the game and experience what Asilo can be in at your table. Um, and something that you can take into consideration when it comes to Patient Zero. I have people asking me, I don't know anything about my character. Maybe you should add some creating a character process. And from that feedback, I said, no, there is no need. There is a very good reason why every time the player is addressed, the word you is used because you, the player, are the patient. I wanted to blur the lines as much as possible to put you in your character shoes, knowing and having the character know what you know, having your experiences, your backgrounds, your ideals, and your compulsions. That's the thing. That's the selling point. And uh, maybe we will be able to grant people with the lost cases, a lot of scenarios, and as much as I can, I'm always open for ideas, for feedbacks, and who knows what other things I can create for the Zil.
If I were to run a silo, I would do it in first person for a lot of players because that gets really intense, and the players actually experience that sort of fear in horror or in any
Mhm.
other situation. I have had players that are playing in first person and suddenly they start my character is swinging and no first person and because they want to distance themselves from their
Yeah, yeah.
horrors.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I understand what you mean by first person. Okay, instead of saying my character does, it's I do.
I
I
do in
make.
the present, in the
Okay.
now, because you can also role play in third person, but I usually employ that in anime or cartoon type of games because you feel like as if you are watching the anime character.
Yeah, you're
So,
like
like the
you're
screen, right?
pushing the
And
scene.
you're
Okay,
playing
this
the
is
role of a character on the screen. But when it comes to this more visceral, gritty experience, I prefer the first person definitely.
yeah. And allow me to ask Abraham, from what you've seen from Patient Zero, what are your thoughts regarding your insights and um, and what do you expect from Asilo?
I'm still pretty early on
Mhm.
into my journey. But like I said before, perhaps before these weekends, I want to give out my spoiler-free review. But so far, I can tell you that the sense of not knowing if something is real or if something is just inside of head is very well communicated. I also like that feeling of claustrophobia, but at the same time, it's a very weird feeling because it feels comfy in the sense that the entire world around you disappears and you're now just focused
Yeah,
on of the asylum and the asylum. So I really enjoy that so far.
I'm glad to hear. That's awesome.
A sort of comfort in madness, I could say.
You know the expression, there is a method to my madness.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've actually had players, friends and players that have actual, how you say, issues that they are dealing with. For example,
Mhm.
schizoactive. I think that's the right term, and they actually enjoy tabletop RPGs that explore these issues because they actually want to work through those issues, and they just like turning a blind eye to those things doesn't help. You explore
No.
them and you conquer them.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
this Asilo, it could be an experience like that.
Yeah, my thoughts as well. I would love to have a session with people that have some form of issues or whatever they are, whatever the symptoms, if you want to call them that, and see how they react. If they will find the experience cathartic, or if by some weird reason it would aggravate the situation. I don't know, just morbid curiosity, I guess.
Or you could say scientific as well. It's through science that we find out more about ourselves and the world.
Yeah,
Hmm.
scientific method, scientific thought.
Very method, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Danielle, and everyone. I'm going to put the links to Asilo, to the Game Found project in the description of this video. Definitely check it out. And of course, before the end of this week, I am planning to give you my entire experience of what I went through when playing Patient Zero. Once again, thank you, Daniel, and thank you so much to everyone else. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information will be in the description, the pinned comment. Like, subscribe, join as a member, use the super thanks button. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, and remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player.
Oh yeah.
Once again, thank you all. Thank you, Daniel, and see you all later. I will stop the recording in 10 seconds.